Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Minecraft Disney World Q&A. It's a series in which you send me questions relating to anything Disney and I give you my answers, whether they're factual or not. This week I thought we'd start here at the Contemporary Resort, maybe walk around a little bit and then take the monorail over to the Magic Kingdom. This is by far my favorite resort. I think it is a shining beacon of this forward-facing look into the future by having a hotel with a monorail that runs through it. I think that's really cool. Anyway, we've got 6 questions here today. We're going to answer them. Some of them are opinion-based, some of them are factual-based. Actually, I think most of these are opinion-based, but sometimes they're factual-based. Anyway, let's get started. The first one is actually about the server. Jordan Mann asks, let's say the Disney company found out about the MC Magic. Do you think they would use it as their benefit and help them out by giving them blueprints and things like that, or not at all and leave them alone? Well, so we know already that there are a couple of CMs who work there, like within the parks. I don't think any of them are employees on the like executive level, although that's totally possible. I would almost guess that somebody somewhere on the legal team has seen MC Magic. I think in most cases that they're probably safe. I don't think... I mean, what threat does this really pose, right? Unless Disney has some plans to do. I think the only time you'd ever see something kick in is if Disney ever teamed up with Mojang to work on something Minecraft Disney related, and I don't think that's ever going to happen because I think Disney unfortunately has a very close-minded view when it comes to interactive media, which is bizarre considering they are a pretty large media company. But if you look at their track record with video game companies, it's never really well. Most of their developer studios get shut down. They bought LucasArts and then almost immediately shut it down. I mean, they'll still make games, but they're all about mobile right now, and they are all about outsourcing that to other developers, and so I don't think you'll ever see that sort of scenario come up. I think they don't mind, because at the end of the day, this is not a server that criticizes Disney or anything. It's here as a celebration of Disney, so it looks like, if anything, it's positive press, right? So I don't think that'll ever happen. At the same time, I don't think they'll ever like help out, aside from the fact that, you know, you've got, I think, CMs here who are you know, an obvious help, and they also work there. So in a weird way, Disney, I guess, does help out, but like on an executive level, I don't see that happening. But that's fine, because the CMs and the Imagineers and everyone here at MC Magic have done such a fantastic job that I don't think they would really need the help. Of course, I'm sure right now some of them are screaming that they would love all these blueprints from Disney. Okay, so we skipped the monorail ride and we're just going to head right to the Magic Kingdom. So here we are. One of the greatest parks ever. And on to the second question. K-Op says, great show. Sounds like Disney should be in touch with you for great ideas. I don't remember what idea that he's talking about, or he or she's talking about, but I wish they would get in touch with me. Go right ahead, Disney. I'm all ears. Do you think Disney will start/purchase/develop an airline, much like their bus line from MCO, that's Orlando International Airport, to Disney property? Seems like if they did, they should focus on supersonic Mach 2 travel in a way that could be your first ride to get to the Disney park safely and fast. Well, I think that's totally cool and would love to see that. I don't know how likely that is to happen. You have to understand, the bus service was a genius idea by Michael Eisner. So what he's talking about is it's a service called, wow, now it's of course escaping me, Magical Express. Disney's Magical Express. It is a free bus service offered to anybody flying into MCO, or Orlando Airport, from the airport to the resorts that you're staying at on property at Disney, and a free bus ride back to the airport. And so this frees you up from having to rent a car or take a cab. And they will take your luggage for you and leave it in the resort. It's actually, like, I've used the service twice now, and I love it. I love that I can just drop off my luggage at the airport and not have to worry about picking it up. I love that the bus takes me right there. I don't have to worry about renting a car, and it'll take me right back. Now, the genius part about it, and the reason why it was worth the trouble and money, is because what this does is this prevents them from having to rent a car, like I said. And what does that mean? That means that as far as Disney's concerned, I don't want to use the word trapped, but they're there. They're not going anywhere. They don't have a car to drive over somewhere else. Now, of course, it's totally possible. Some people do that. What do we have going on here? Got a little group getting together. But I think it reduces the likeliness of that happening. And so that's great, because what Disney wants at the end of the day is you to spend as many days as possible of your vacation on Disney property, because that means every dollar you spend is going to be spent there and with them. So that's sort of, I think, the thinking behind it. Now if you translate that to an airline service, I don't think that that's as likely, because, well, what does that mean? If you had an airline, does that mean you have to take Magical Express? And if so, do you really... I think it boils down to the numbers. I don't think it would affect their attendance too much. I don't think, there are a number of people who are straying from Disney property because they don't have a Disney-owned airline. You know what I mean? Like, people, I don't think, cancel their Disney trips because they don't have a bus option. Like, say Magical Express didn't exist, you'd have to rent a car or take a cab. I think people would still go to Disney, obviously, but because they have that car already there, they'd be more likely to go use it and go to Universal or go somewhere else or go to the beach, right? Now apply that mentality to an airline, Space Mountain, great ride. Let's say you don't have a Disney airline. Well, you're still flying to Florida. That doesn't sort of equate. I'm having a hard time articulating what I'm trying to say, but hopefully you get the gist of it. It's, the benefit to the bus line was that it gave a value to the customer, while at the same time gave a value to the company by keeping them on property. Well, an airline wouldn't really do the same thing. It would give a value to the customer because hopefully, a Disney-run airline would be magical and awesome and all that stuff, but it wouldn't really help the company because it wouldn't really help in any way keeping people on property, unless they built their own airport, I guess. But the costs to do all that would be so insanely high. I just don't see that sort of in their books. But hey, I would love to see that. And I think we need to see airlines, regardless of who owns them, get into supersonic Mach 2 travel. Because it's 2013. We're not going to get flying cars, it seems. We will get robotic cars, but come on, let's get some supersonic flight. Thanks for that great question. Let's see. 803 Ham 1998 asks, this new YouTube comment system is kind of forced upon us, so this got me thinking. Has there ever been a time in the Disney Corporation history where a new idea or concept was forced upon its employees and or guests and there was a negative reaction? Well, I can think of one right off the top of my head, and that was Figment. I don't think Figment got a negative reaction. I think when they revised Journey into Imagination, it's got an overwhelmingly negative reaction. I think that's one of the few refurbs that I don't think you really see anybody going, oh yeah, that was a great refurb. I think it sort of lessened it to an extent. So I would say that one right off the top of my head. As far as policy goes, I mean, I think there's some mixed reactions when it comes to, I think, the Eisner era of Disney. I think he did a lot of things to make the company more profitable and turn it into the mega company that it is today. But at the same time, it sort of, people think, cheapened it or took some of the soul out of it. I mean, one of the first things he did when he got into office is realize how underpriced a trip to Disney was, and so he just jacked up the prices so that it was more profitable. And it's easy to hate on him for that because who wants to pay more? But at the same time, Disney was at risk of being hostily taken over and broken apart and sold off to pieces. So he did what he had to do to save the company and keep it afloat. Building all these new hotels, things like that. I think there was a lot of change that might have had some negative reactions. The Magic Kingdom, when it originally opened, had a lot of unique shops that were very specific to the areas they were in. For instance, there was I'm trying to think of, I think Disneyland had like a lingerie shop or like an underwear shop or something. Like they had these weird shops that had a theme and it fit in with the land that they were in. And what ended up happening is, they looked at the numbers and saw, wow, this stuff's not really selling. But, it does sell like Mickey Mouse plushes and t-shirts. So let's turn all of those shops. And that's why, when you walk into a gift shop on Disney World property, odds are, the theming might be a little different, but the stock is going to be more or less exactly the same, with some minor variations. And so that's been met with some negative reaction. But at the same time, I don't think it had as much as heart or, fond memories as I'd say like a ride like Journey into Imagination. So Figment would be on the top of my list of changes that I think were not met very well. Let's see. In fact, here we go. This next question it's a long one, so bear with me, but it does involve this. So Haley Noel C says, "Hi Rob, I have a long one for you. I'm a huge fan of Epcot, and my favorite Future World pavilion is actually the Imagination Pavilion. The attractions there have become a little lackluster and outdated." See, there you go, negative reaction. "But I love Figment, and as a book-loving English major, I've always appreciated that the old concept of Journey into Imagination celebrated all areas of human creation, including literature and art along with science. I was really interested in your ideas of Epcot, so I was wondering if you go into more detail about this pavilion. Do you think your vision for it would still include this concept of the broader spectrum of creation, including arts and the humanities? Also, I've been hearing troubling rumors about the pavilion's future, and with Tony Baxter's recent departure, I'm getting nervous. Do you think it's possible Epcot would ever get rid of Figment altogether, or has he become an Epcot icon, even if he loses his ride someday?" That is a long but fantastic question, and I'm going to try and break into it into parts. So, what he or she is referring to is that in past episodes, I could go, and I'm still going to do this one day, I can talk at length about, I think, every pavilion at Future World and Epcot and what I think they should do to it, because as much as I love Epcot and it is still my favorite park, I think there's so much more that they could be doing and that they're not living up to the full potential of what Epcot's supposed to mean. So it's funny that you bring up the Imagination Pavilion, Haley, because that's actually the one I have the least amount of experience with. I've ridden on the ride when I was younger. I have to be honest, in my last couple of trips, I never made my way over there. Like, I wasn't a fan of Captain EO. My recollection of what used to be there was Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and so it's sort of aged. That said, I do know, it's a pavilion focused on imagination and creation, and I do think in my version of the reimagined pavilion, it would absolutely entail all forms of creation. I went to film school. I produce these videos, in my own free time. I definitely have an appreciation for the arts beyond, technology, and I do think arts are an important part of technological advancement. I mean, how many creations of science fiction have become reality just because it inspired people to take up a field of study that they might not have otherwise? I mean, how many people who work at NASA grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek? I mean, these are, very important. And, same thing with books. I mean, the arts absolutely should be kept in the loop. I don't know what the ride specifically would be. That's a really tough one. How do you make a ride about creation? I think you would have your most, visually pleasing and aesthetically creative attraction there, because you could play with all sorts of forms of art. Now, moving on to your question about Figment, do I think they'd ever get rid of him completely? That's tough, because I don't think he's outside of, his acknowledged role as sort of like the Epcot icon. I don't think he's got a lot of relevancy anymore, and that's a shame, because I do remember of the ride I really enjoyed, and I think there are a lot of hardcore Disney fans out there who love it, and I do think that might step in the way of them totally removing it. As for removing it from the ride, unfortunately, I think that's possible. And the only reason I say that is because I think Disney lately is very much, here's the thing, it'll go one way or the other. I think you'll see Figment removed and replaced with a established IP that has some media brand tie-in, like a movie, because that's just sort of what Disney's been doing now, is, you know, every attraction has something to do with a movie or a TV show or something like that, because, you know, it's all about this this cross promotion. Or, and this is probably the less likely scenario, you'd see them try and make a movie out of Figment and turn Figment into that cross promotion like brand. And maybe, I hope they would do that, right? I mean, they're making a Tomorrowland movie, right? And Pirates of the Caribbean was based on the attraction, but it didn't really have much to do. There was like 1 or 2 minor references to the ride, but beyond that, it was just like they just took it in name only. Hey, it's the princesses. Who do we got here? We have Aurora, Cinderella. I don't know who you are. Tangled? Are you Tangled? I don't know. Maybe, hold on, let's see. Rapunzel. Still have not seen that movie. So I don't know. I think that's where you'll see it go. Oh my gosh, am I trapped here? Oh my gosh, I'm trapped here. All right, well, let's go to Hollywood. Whoops, Hollywood Studios. Okay, that's not it either. There we go. That was a fantastic question. I don't know. I want to go into that more, and thank you for like even asking, because it's sort of reminded me that I do want to do one day a Pavilion series on what I think Disney could do to like really turn Future World around. I do think, yeah, I think you might. Man, that's such a tough thing, because on one hand, you want to embrace, I think, the spirit of Disney, and that was change and evolution, and on the other hand, you have all these fond memories. My thoughts, and I think I mentioned them last, maybe this was the great idea that Kay was talking about, is I want to see like a really in-depth form of keeping a Disney attraction that closes close to your heart. I would have dropped so much money that I probably wouldn't even have for like a box set on Horizons with like a little model of the Horizons car and a book about the creation of it and a DVD of, you know, a ride through and the soundtrack and all that stuff. So I mean, I think if Disney could ever adopt something like that, I would be more open to them, you know, doing things like, you know, removing Figment and putting a new attraction there. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have Alan MGM. Hey, fitting that we're here in Hollywood Studios, formerly MGM Studios. What are your favorite 10 most memorable Disney villains and their songs? Well, Alan, I'm not going to go with 10 because then I'd be here for another like half hour, but I will give you 1 or 2 in no particular order, and their favorite songs. So here's the thing. I have villains that I like that I don't think have songs, or that I don't care for their song. So for one, I love Melissa. Wow, I can't even pronounce it. Melissa. I can't do it. Oh, Maleficent. I gotta look this up. It feels like I'm pronouncing it wrong. Maleficent. Okay, I am pronouncing it right. I don't know why, that just felt so wrong to me. Maybe I am pronouncing it wrong, I don't know. I think she's a super creepy villain. I don't think she had a song, though. Maybe she... No, I don't think she did. If she did, it wasn't catchy enough for me to remember. But she was still, like, super creepy because she had just, like, this dead stare. It was like, normally, you know, you think of villains in some modern Disney movies, and, like, they still have some, like, almost a likable flair to them. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of one of these villains. Like Hades from Hercules. Like, yeah, he was the bad guy, but you know what? Like, he was kind of funny, and you know, you didn't mind watching him. Not her. She was just creepy, right? The whole way through. I mean, it's more the classic style. So that's from, like, old school Disney. I would kind of see her as a villain, and I can't wait to see Angelina Jolie's version of her in the new movie coming out. If you haven't seen the trailer, you should check it out. Her laugh is almost spot on. It is so eerie. And it seems like they're treating that property with some reverence, which is great, because I was afraid a little bit that they were just, you know, digging into Disney IP titles and using them for new movies. And then I guess another one from a new era, or a newish era, I should say. I still haven't seen like Tangled and Princess and the Frog. I need to get on that, and Rapunzel and stuff like that. I guess I would say Hades. I liked Hades. He was just like, you know, James Woods. He was funny. Again, see, not a lot of songs there. But I like a villain that you can like at the same time. Like, on one hand, yeah, if they're super creepy like that, it'll really work and be effective. But it could also be great to, like, have a villain you can relate to. I guess Disney villains now. Darth Vader. Who else? I mean, just like, you know, when I think of that, I think of villains like Zork from The Fifth Element, where it's like, yeah, he's a villain, he's the bad guy, but like he's got a flair about him that makes him likable, and you're not rooting for him so much, but you don't mind when he's up. You don't hate him. Let me go back to questions here. That's a great question. And you know what? That's the question I want to ask all of you guys. Who's your favorite Disney villain, and their song, if they have one? I'd be interested in hearing what you guys have to say. And then finally this week, we have the Spence TV, who says there have been plans to make an up-themed ride out of the old People Mover track layout at Disneyland. Do you think Disney will follow through? I'm actually completely unaware of these plans. I'm going to have to look into them a little bit to see just how much of a rumor it is versus solid. I mean, like I said, it sort of plays into what I was talking about earlier with Disney's desire to tie everything into something else so that you can cross-promote it. Do I think they'll follow through? I don't know. Maybe. I think the People Mover is not a AAA ride, and I do think, you know, when it comes to that, as long as they can keep it like the People Mover and that it's an Omni Mover-like system. I know it's not exactly Omni Mover because you don't have one uncontinuous broken chain, but you almost have that same sort of, you know, flow through of people. I think if they could keep that up, then they would probably be more willing to do it. And it would probably, I don't even know what it would be like. Maybe dioramas from up while you're going through, because, you know, attraction-wise, it's pretty simple. You're on a flat track, but it goes around, you know, Tomorrowland. So I don't know what they can do with that aside from, you know, adding some up-theming. And yeah, I could totally see them doing that. It'd be a shame. I would kind of, you know, like people with Figment, I would be a little bummed out about that, just because I think Tomorrowland, and maybe it's for me and my love of science, Tomorrowland just reminds me so much of Walt and his original dreams for Disneyland and Disney World. Like, when I think of, you know, 1955 Disneyland, I think of Tomorrowland for some reason. And I know there's the castle, there's so much more to the park, but Tomorrowland sticks out to me just because he was such a future forward looking person that, you know, part of me wonders if that was like his favorite part of the park. So there you have it. If you have a question you want me to answer, just leave it in the comments. I know Google's making it a little difficult recently, but hopefully they'll have some sort of changes to that soon. Who knows? But if you leave it in the comments, I will hopefully get to everything. If I don't get to it on screen, I will get to it in the comments. Oh, wait. I have one more comment. Hold on. I got to pull this up because it's a Twitter. So I forgot this one last week. Here we go. Twisted Legacy 88 says, how did the whole Disneyland Disney World come to life? I heard Walt made Disneyland because he took his daughter to an amusement park and he didn't like the service, so he made his own. Is this true? Thanks. So I'll give you the short version, of course, because we're a little running low on time here, and also that's kind of could be a long story. But what you've heard is partially true. So what you're thinking of is the story of him taking his daughters to the carousel on Sunday. Sunday was his day with his daughters. You know, he wasn't focused on work. He was with them. And he was sitting there while they were riding the carousel, and it wasn't about the service so much as he was struck with the idea of, why isn't there a park or a place where adults can also have fun with the kids, where they're not just sitting there watching the kids have fun? And that sort of was like the, you know, famous spark of inspiration for a theme park. Now, of course, the service thing does play in later. I think a lot of the policies Disney had, for a long time, you couldn't have a facial hair. If you were a male and working at Disney, you couldn't maintain facial hair. And that was because he didn't like the quality of service at most like carnivals and fairs. The word carny is sort of a derogatory term because the quality is never really known for being top-notch. And so he did instill a lot of policies to sort of curb that idea that Disney was just another carnival or fair, and that it was really something special. And, if you think about it, he birthed the term theme park. There were no theme parks before this. There were carnivals, there were fairs, there were boardwalks, but there weren't theme parks. Now, of course, we've got plenty of theme parks. And I believe also part of it, and I don't think this was like the spawn of inspiration as much as I think it sort of added to the hay on, the camel's back before his birthday. I just butchered that example, whatever. But I do remember reading a lot about how people would come to visit the studio, Disney Studios, and, they'd want to do something or they'd want to meet Mickey Mouse. And, there were people who, little kids who thought Mickey was real and they wanted to meet Mickey Mouse. And so I think part of that was fulfilling this idea of having a place for Disney fans to go and have fun and do things. So yeah, that's sort of the story behind the really short version behind the birth of Disneyland World. Of course, the very short version is he had the plan to build Epcot, this futuristic city with actual citizens, with actual workers, actual commerce, not in any way a theme park. And then the idea was that place, Disney World, would also have its own Magic Kingdom, which would in part be a source of funding for Epcot, and it would be a source of things to do for people who visit Epcot. But the main goal of Disney World before he died was Epcot and this future city of tomorrow that would act as a ideal model of what a city in America could be. And of course, that's not what we have today, but we do have an Epcot. And like I said, I've got a whole series of videos down the line that I could talk about for days about Epcot, and hopefully I could get to that at some point. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope whatever you're doing this week, you make the most of it, because it makes it so much better and more enjoyable. And I hope to see you all here next week for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney World Q&A. Bye, everybody.